Welcome to video 6, where I'll show the last two shapes that I use when I'm counting, and I'll also demonstrate the cross-checker shortcut. There will be no quiz section in this video. Instead, we will do a series of live examples. Let's start with 3 checkers near the 13 point. Here's your home field, here's your 13 point, and this formation of 3 checkers is 40 pips. This would be 39, and this would be 40 plus 2, 42. Very easy. This is interesting though. This 39 here, what if we had this to count? 40 and 40 minus 2 is 78. Pretty straightforward. But I'll often look at this and I'll just call that 80. Now that's not a count, that is an estimate. And estimating a race is a very useful skill, and knowing when you need an accurate count and when an estimate is good enough will be the subject of a future video. Let's look at a few more examples of this formation. So let's look at just these 5 checkers. How would we count these? We could do 40. 50, 60 minus 4 is 56. We could also do 40, 50 plus 6 is 56. 40, 56. We could also do what we already know. We see 5 checkers in the outfield. 50 plus 2 plus 4. So this would be 50, 52, 56. 3 different ways this can be counted. Let's look at another example. Our next example, let's look at these 4 checkers and how we would count them. Now we do love using our 10 point, and we could shift this checker, mentally of course, to our 10 point. What shift would we use over there? Well, when we're shifting checkers, plus checker, minus checker, they go in opposite directions when they're on the same side of the board. When they're on the opposite side of the board, plus 1, minus 1, or plus 2, minus 2. When we're doing cross-checker shifting, they move the same direction, which is actually easier. So for this, if I shift these 2 checkers here, I have 10 and 40 is 50 plus 1. 10 and 40 is 50 plus 1, 51. One last example for this group. 4 checkers to count. 40, 50, 3. Super easy. 40, 50, 3. Now this group near the 13 point is very useful. We always want to be studying the things that come up the most frequently, the things we need the most. And the game starts with 5 checkers on the 13 point, 2 checkers on the 24 point. And very frequently, we need to count checkers on the 13 point. Now let's say it's the start of the game, you have a little bit of a blitz, you have a good start to the game, we're pulling checkers from the 13 point and checkers on the 24 point, so often they end up targeting your own 13 point. 6-5, you decide that this would be the best to play. 6-4, great escaping roll, and you get to the point in the game where you decide you need to know what the pip count is because you're looking at cube action. How would we count this? 40, 50, 60, and 6 is 66. Very easy. Now let's look at our cross-checker shortcut. Here we have a checker on the 1 point and a checker on the 24 point. Pip count is 25. Add 1, subtract 1. Pip count, still 25. 5 point, 20 point. Pip count is 25. We already talked a little bit about cross-checker shifting, but it's important to note that you can move them anywhere and the pip count doesn't change. 4 checkers, 25 and 25, 50. 4 checkers across from each other, 50. 3 checkers, 75. What do we have here? 75 plus 3, 78. What would this be? 50 plus 4, 54. What do we have now? 50 and 40 is 90. Very quick. If you have a lot of checkers in your opponent's backfield, it's probably not worth counting. The count is probably not going to make that much of a difference in your decision. But when this does come up, you can eliminate a lot of checkers very quickly. Now let's look at the last area that we're counting, the opponent's home field. I use a 20 point. I treat it just like the 10 point. It's a multiple of 10, easy to count. 20, 40, 22, 20, 40, 4. Super easy. And this will often be a case where there's two different ways of counting. If you have extra checkers here, something like this would be 25, 50, 52. Again, looking for groups, we can eliminate large numbers of checkers very quickly. Time for some examples. 40, 50, 60, 100, 98. 40, 50, 60, 100 minus 2, 98. Next example. 50, 60, 70, 90, 110, 112, 118. 50, 60, 70, 90, 110, 112, 118. Next example. 60, 110, 134 minus 2, 132. Another way of doing this one is we can shift plus 2 minus 2. 60, 110, 130, 132. Next example, 40. And 50 is 90, 100, 102. 40, 90, 100, 102. Next example, 60, 100, 144, and 2, 146. We can shift this position. Second way we can do this. 60, 146. Next example. 60, 70, 85, and 40 is 125 minus 1, 124 plus 1, 125. We can also shift this position. Cross checkers, same direction. 60, 100, 125. Very easy. Our next example, 40, 80, 93, and 6, 99. And just for the record, this is how I see it. 40, 80, 93, and 6, 99. Was it about 4 seconds to count this? When I started backgammon, it was a long time before I even realized counting was, how important counting was. No one was there to teach me, so for years I avoided counting. And what a contrast now. Here's a position, and how long did it really take? 40, 80, 93, and 6, 99. 4 to 5 seconds to count 15 checkers. Our next example, 70 and 40 is 110, and 40, 150, 153. Now there's two shifts I did here. 70, easy shift. Same side of the board, checkers move opposite directions. 70 and 40, 110, and 40 is 150, 153. Our next and last example, 70. 70 and 50 is 120, 123, 133, 136. Now what I did here, I did minus 2 plus 2, gave me 70 and 50, 120, 123, 133, 136. Nice easy solution to this one. And just for the record, all of the examples, except for 2, were taken from actual games, actual play. So that's the end of the mechanics of counting, the actual process we go through when we're counting a race. But it's not the end of the content. In video number 7, I'll be talking about the Pip cube. And what I mean by that is, are we actually using the Pip count just by itself to determine if we're cubing or not? Or if our opponent cubes us, is it a take? Is it a drop? And even if you've been playing this game for a while, I almost guarantee I can show you something that you've never really considered before. I will also talk about race estimation, and I'll do some examples. When to use an estimation, when that's good enough, and when it's not good enough and you need an exact count. And at the end of video 7, I will show you a tip that I think will help your Pip counting and that you will really enjoy. So tune in for that.